again to our show that is called Real Shame, where we watch movies that we probably should have seen that we haven't seen, and we're fixing that for you today. I'm Adam.
I'm Andy.
And this week, we're week 2 of our horror movie marathon, where we're giving you more episodes and more Halloween horror movies. Last week, we did a bunch of Blumhouse movies, so if you haven't seen those, check those out. And this week, we're doing a whole bunch of movie sequels. These are movies that we've seen the first movie of, and we have yet to see the sequel of, and we're fixing that for you today. And so the first movie we're going to do, the first movie sequel we're going to do is...
Just when you thought it was safe to go back in the water, another killer shark surfaces in Jaws 2.
You better check the bite radius.
The what?
Shape of the mouth.
Whale's mouth?
Shark's mouth.
What shark?
The shark that did this.
We don't know that, do we?
That's what we're here to find out.
And we will.
I can't hear you if you're going to whisper.
111 centimeters.
111 centimeters.
68.
68?
I have had some experience with sharks.
What have you?
Yeah, and I think a great white might have done this.
Carcharodon calcareus?
Right.
What makes you think there might be one in these waters?
Well, it's obvious that a big fish took a bite out of this big fish.
This is a mammal, not a fish.
Don't quibble with me. Is it a shark bite or isn't it?
Possibly.
So Jaws 2 came out 3 years after Jaws the first, Jaws 1, whatever you want to call it, in 1978. I think we both wrote down it. Something about Grease. It came out the same day as Grease. Grease is the word, but I think it beat Grease.
Yeah, I read on trivia, it beat Grease to number 1 in the box office by a few dollars.
Take that, John Travolta. It was
Jaws is the word.
It was exactly. It was directed by Jeannot Jouark. His last name eludes me, I think.
Yeah.
But Steven Spielberg did not want to come back and do a sequel. He said absolutely not. And Richard Dreyfuss also said nah. And they were both still, I think, working on Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Yep. Or I think maybe some post-production, something like that. Well, that's not true. Close Encounters of the Third Kind came out in 1977. So I guess this movie was probably shooting around that time. So they were doing something, but they did not want to have anything to do with it. Actually, Roy Scheider didn't really want to do it either. But he was supposed to do The Deer Hunter, and he backed out of The Deer Hunter, and Universal Studios was like, hey, dude, you owe us a picture. Yeah. He was contractually bound, so they kind of forced him to do Jaws 2 to make up for the fact that he backed out of The Deer Hunter. So he did it, but he was not happy about it, and he clashed with the director, Jeannot Jouark. But I mean, I think he still does a good job in the movie.
Yeah, I think so.
It's not like he acted poorly, but I know that they had some arguments on set. It was written by Carl Gottlieb and Howard Sackler, and obviously source materials originally by Peter Benchley, inspired by Peter Benchley's novel Jaws. The original director was a guy named John Hancock, and no, not the John Hancock Declaration of Independence. John Hancock, different John Hancock, obviously. That guy had directed movies like Bang the Drum Slowly, which is a great sports movie with Robert De Niro, and another, what has now become a cult horror film called Let's Scare Jessica to Death. And Jessica in that film is played by a lady named Zora Lampert, and we're going to see her in another sequel that we'll talk about later on this week. Cool. But John Hancock, Universal didn't like what he was doing with the picture. They didn't like the direction he was taking, so he got axed. And Joe
fed to the sharks.
You're right. He never did another picture after that. He was dead. No, he did. Joe Alvis was the production designer on the first Jaws and the production designer on Jaws 2, and he would later go on to direct Jaws 3, which is the only movie he's ever directed. But he had worked on a TV show called Night Gallery with a guy named Jeannot Jouark, and so he suggested Jeannot Jouark for the job. Incidentally, Steven Spielberg also directed, I think, one of the segments of the pilot movie of Night Gallery. Yeah. So, of course, he went on to do Jaws 1. So then they went back to the Night Gallery well and pulled Jeannot Jouark to do Jaws 2. Roy Scheider returns as Martin Brody. Lorraine Gary returns as his wife Ellen Brody. The Murray Hamilton's back as the mayor. Jeffrey Kramer is the deputy Hendrix.
Yep.
And originally, Jeffrey Kramer was not going to be in Jaws 2 until I think Janos Schwartz took over. And Janos Schwartz was like, hey, I'll just call him JS, so I don't have to keep saying that. JS was like, hey, we need to bring back the deputy. So they brought him back. And I think he adds some flavor to the movie.
Yeah,
It's nice to have him back. Those are the only people I think returning from the cast. Obviously, Quint died in the first one. Richard Dreyfuss didn't come back as Hooper. Whoop, there went
They went our screens.
screensaver.
Oops, we'll have to watch that.
That's okay. Where we at? Yeah. So that's pretty much the director, and that threw me off. The director, the cast, the crew, all of that kind of stuff. Oh, one other guy that it has in the movie is Keith Gordon, plays one of the teenagers. He went on to be in other movies like Back to School. He plays Arnie and Christine, and then he went on to be a director, and he did Midnight Clear, which we
cool.
watched last December. So, this is a movie that I have seen before. I have seen Jaws 2, although it has been a long time. We did Jaws 4
We did Jaws 4.
for the Shark Week.
And we've both seen Jaws 1 numerous
Yes,
times, so
numerous
it doesn't
times.
really qualify for the show.
Including Jaws on the Water.
Yeah, we
saw
did
it.
that. Oh, yeah, that was
Jaws
awesome.
on the Water, which was cool. But you've never seen Jaws 2.
Never seen Jaws 2.
And you've still never seen Jaws 3.
Still never seen
So
Jaws 3.
We may need to fix that at some point, but beware. I guess, what did you know about the old sequel to Jaws going into it, and what did you think?
I didn't know a whole lot about it. I did know that his wife was going to be in it because she's basically been in all the movies.
Yeah.
So I knew that was going to be a thing. So I didn't know much going into it. Overall, I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah.
You know, it's just so hard to follow up Jaws because Jaws is Jaws, right? It's so good, and I just feel like it lacked some of those things from the first movie that made the first movie so interesting. Because I feel like the first movie, you know, a lot of the momentum is, you know, Roy Scheider, Richard Dreyfuss, and whoever played Quint,
Robert Shaw.
Robert Shaw, just sitting on the boat and just like talking, and you have like the Missouri story and all that kind of stuff, and just their interactions really drive this movie, and it feels sorely missed from Jaws 2, right? We don't have something like that, and I am thinking about it now after watching it. I think Jaws 2 would have played better if it was more like a slasher movie where you have this shark that's just going out hunting and killing people. And if that was, and I think the movie is kind of like that, it has that bones, but I think for it to be successful as like a slasher movie, the kills needed to be upped.
Yeah.
Because I feel like we get a couple kills in the beginning, we see the shark, then everything's kind of slow, and then it's like dread of the shark going to get everyone, and then we get some kind of, you know, fireworks at the end, right? So, you know, that all being said, you know, it's hard to follow up the first one, but I thought it was good and, you know, interesting to watch, just with those different caveats. I do have some more to say, but let's start with you. So you said it's been a while since you've seen Jaws 2. What did you remember? Did you remember liking it? And what did you think about it this time?
Yeah, I did. I did like this film a long time ago, and I still like it now. I don't think I'm as enthusiastic about it as I used to be. I've always thought, I mean, I will say this, Jaws 2 is a much better sequel than obviously Jaws 3 and Jaws. I mean, I think Jaws 4 is just the pits. So
really?
Yes. I think I gave it a bomb whenever we did the Shark Week. Yeah. I'm not a fan of Jaws 4. And Jaws 3, I was telling you this before we started filming, I started rewatching it again. I saw Jaws 3 in the theater. That's how old I am.
With the glasses?
With the glasses, yes.
Nice.
I saw Jaws. I was young, and I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified, but I did go see it, and I know you're probably thinking, why did your parents take you to see that movie? I don't know why, but they did. But yes, I was absolutely terrified, but I've seen it maybe once since then, and then I started rewatching it last night, but I was too tired and I fell asleep. But it's not good. At least not what I saw last night. It's not good. But I think Jaws 2 is a pretty decent follow-up to Jaws 1. I think you're obviously 100% correct. Jaws, the original, is an absolute masterpiece. So there's no way. I mean, JS had the cards stacked against him.
Yeah, for sure.
He had the unenviable task of trying to follow up Jaws, but I think that the movie's directed fine.
Yeah.
I think the performances are fine for the most part. I do get really sick of the teenagers shrieking incessantly.
Yeah.
And I understand some of their friends are getting eaten by sharks, but still, come on, keep it together. No, they do a lot of yelling. I think the scene with Roy Scheider where he tries to get everybody out of the water and then they're like, it's just bluefish, is really, really over the top.
Yeah, where he's like shooting the water.
Yeah,
and
it's
stuff.
very silly.
It doesn't seem like the same guy from the first movie.
No, right. It's very, very stupid. But I do like the water skiing thing. Although I wish that Jaws would have chomped on her as she's water skiing.
Yeah.
Instead, she
That
just
would've-
kind of gets knocked off, and then
That
the
would've
other
been
lady
too
gets
difficult.
blown up.
Yeah.
Which I was cracking up. I don't know about you at that part.
I wasn't cracking up, but I love the way the shark looked after it.
Yes,
with the
he
partially
looks
burnt,
very cool.
with the
yeah.
partially burnt face and the scratches.
Yes.
He looks awesome. Like I think I wish they would have continued that with the other movies. I know
Yeah.
they're different sharks because obviously this one, spoiler alert, meets its demise in this
Yeah.
movie. But I like the partially mangled shark.
It does look very cool. I do think when he finally does meet his demise and gets
It's
electrocuted, it looks
silly.
pretty silly. And then
And there's
understand,
like a bunch of cuts. They're trying to. It seems like they're trying to hide for not special effects not going the way they thought it would go.
yeah, and I mean, it's 1978 special effects, so I'm not making fun of it just because it's old, but it does look silly.
Yeah.
I don't know how it would have looked to me if I'd have seen it back in 1978, but I think it looks pretty silly. Also, the one guy that's parasailing, I don't think anything happens to him. You think something's going to happen to him
Yeah.
every time he gets in the water, and then he
I think
comes
it's
out.
like
and
a
then
fake out.
a little fake out. So yeah,
But it's not doesn't give you enough dread. I feel like
No.
whenever he's doing that.
No, I wish that they would have had some more creative kills.
Yeah.
And then basically the latter half of the movie is just all the kids just kind of stranded and with
Jaws
their boats
is
all
like
tied together.
doing his own thing. It would have been better if like he was circling around them, like maybe nudging the boats a little bit, like
Yeah.
create that sense of dread. He was just kind of like gone until the helicopter came. Then he's like, okay, I'm gonna take
I
this
do
thing
think
out.
it's funny that he
Yeah,
takes the
he does
helicopter
take
out.
the helicopter out.
That's pretty crazy. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a decent follow up. Again,
Yeah.
you're never going to equal the original Jaws. I was reading after I watched this about some of the criticisms about the film, and overall the film actually gets pretty decent reviews,
Yeah.
and it is fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. I'll tell you the exact score here in a minute, but I think that I completely lost my train of thought.
Oh, sorry. No, I'll jump in and you can fix it. So I think one line that we both kind of stuck out to us when watching this movie was Dr. Elkins saying that sharks don't take things personally, Mr. Brody. And apparently she hasn't seen Jaws 4 yet.
That's right.
Because they do take things personally. I have a cute little tidbits about this movie, and then let's see if that kind of jogs your memory. So Jaws 2 was briefly, only for a year, the highest grossing sequel. That was until Rocky 2 was released, and that came out the following year, if I remember correctly. This is also the first Hollywood movie, so movie that's produced out of Hollywood, that uses the number 2 in the title as a sequel. Before that, they all use the Roman numerals, the II, and we have a couple movies that have II later on in the week.
Aye, Captain.
And we already talked about, how it just barely beat out Grease as the number 1 opening in the first weekend. Did it come back to you at all?
Yes, I do remember what I was going to say. One of the criticisms that gets hurled at this film is that because the first movie, you don't see the shark a lot for much of the picture, and then later on in the movie is you get kind of revealed, and then you see a lot of it actually, especially when it's chomping on Quint on aboard the Orca. And people were criticizing JS because he showed too much of the shark. But I don't think that's really much of a valid criticism because you've already kept it hidden in the first film, and then you see it in the first film. Why would you hide it again for the second film and then see it later? You already know what it looks like.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the same shark, but it's essentially the same for all intents and purposes.
I think that's stupid, and I think he was right in doing it the way he did.
Yeah, and I think he even said, what's the point?
Yeah.
I don't know why I would hide the shark. They already did that in the first film. It works beautifully in the first film. You're not going to do that for that because we're just copying what they did in the first film. What's the point? I don't know. John Williams does do the score for this movie, and I think his score is still good. Obviously, he reuses some of the stuff from the first film, including the iconic shark thing. So I watched the Blu-ray of Jaws 2, and it has like a 45-minute documentary on the making of Jaws 2, which I watched, which is pretty informative and pretty cool. It's kind of old, so you have, I think some of the people that are in the documentary are dead now, but obviously they were still alive to do the interviews back then. But Jeannot, JS, I keep wanting to say his name, JS tells a funny story about how the first Jaws in France was titled Les Dents de la Mer, which is basically the teeth of the sea, Jaws. So they were going to make it for Jaws 2, Les Dents de la Mer 2. But if you say Mer 2
Yeah, it
quickly,
sounds like
Merde, yeah, it sounds like merde, which is shit. So they didn't want to call it Les Dents de la Mer 2. So they called it Les Dents de la Mer Partie 2, Part 2.
Ah, there
So
you go. That's
they got around having people think that it was the teeth of the shit or whatever. Les Dents de la Mer 2. Okay. Go ahead.
I was going
Sorry.
to say, do you have a quick Jaws ranking that you?
It's
of
the
movies?
order that they came. Jaws.
So, do you
Jaws
think
2.
4 is worse than 3?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I'll let you know when I finish Jaws 3
All right.
officially, because I do plan on going back home and finishing it. But yeah, I'm pretty sure Jaws 4 is the worst. And I'll say this again, not that I care about IMDb rankings necessarily, but I know the first one is I think 8 out of 10, which honestly it could be higher to me.
Yeah, it should be higher.
The second one is like 5.8 or something out of 10. The third one is 3.7, and the fourth one is I think 3 out of 10. So.
Okay. I'm Jaws, Jaws 4, Jaws 2, and I haven't seen Jaws 3.
Oh,
But I'm
boy.
terrible. I like Jaws 4.
Oh,
Did I gave it,
I mean, hey,
I gave it a favorable review. I remember.
yeah, okay.
I think
I don't like
like
it.
them both about the same.
I don't like it.
All right.
I think Jaws 2 is far superior to Jaws. Even if you like Jaws 3 better than, Jaws 4 better than Jaws 3, ultimately, I still think Jaws 2 is better than Jaws 4.
So we lost our thing.
Oh.
All right, we'll fix that.
We'll fix that in between.
So we know where we stand. Where do the critics stand on this movie?
So it is 61% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, but the audience score is only 38%. It got 2 thumbs down.
Oh.
Unnecessary sequel, according to Siskel and Ebert. And that'll be a theme this week.
Maybe that's the theme for this week is unnecessary sequels.
Leonard Maltin gives it 2.5 stars, kind of
All
right there in the middle. So
All right, guys. Well, that's everything you wanted to know about our opinions on Jaws 2 and that. So let us know what you think. Have you seen Jaws 2? If you're watching us YouTube, leave a comment below. If you're listening to us, shoot us an email, realshame@gmail.com. And stay tuned for Wednesday when we have another horror movie sequel coming at you. And that's going to be Psycho 2. I
Psycho
believe,
2,
right?
yeah.
Psycho 2, another sequel. Maybe an unnecessary sequel. We'll find that out on Wednesday. So we'll see you soon, guys. Bye.